Hey everyone, welcome to the new Trade to Black podcast, formerly known as the Diamond Hands podcast. It's a division of the Dales Media Group. I'm the host, Shad Dales. Before we get started, all views on the Trade to Black podcast and the guests on this podcast are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or our guests as investment advice. The views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. Joining me, Anthony Etherum, millennial entrepreneur. Anthony, how are things, brother?
Things are good. Had a busy week. Art Basel's going on in Miami. I've been out every night this week and have a bunch of friends in town, so it's been fun.
What's been this?
NFTs have completely eaten the world. Art Basel traditionally is an art driven week in Miami where everyone from internationally comes to Miami for art. Every fucking thing I've been to this week is NFT based.
Seriously.
Everything. Every conversation is NFT based. Every activation is NFT based. They've infiltrated the entire week. It's I love it, but it's crazy how NFTs are just eating the world.
Ben, how's it going?
It's going very well. Cannabis market's heating up, so that's taking a lot of my focus right now. Psychedelics, not so much, but big moves coming. I think in big volatility coming in the U.S. cannabis stocks in the near future.
Volatility, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have one of the most catalyzing events in industry history. I would argue the most catalyzing with safe banking, right? Because that gets the industry roughly halfway there with full legalization, expungements, and all that. And expungements might even be part of that safe banking bill if the HOPE Act gets through, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, huge decision in the industry.
It's about damn time to take the non-violent offenders out of prison.
Yeah, well,
let's
actually talk about
enough's enough.
Let's talk about this now. Let's start this off the top this week. So what is going to happen with the NDAA, Ben?
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of moving parts, right? I think MSOS got hit earlier in the week on reports that the GOP was stonewalling because they don't feel that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats gave him enough debate time in the Senate for some of these amendments, right? And apparently some of their own amendments sort of didn't get considered. So they took that and, basically took a delaying tactic approach. And I think, I can't prove, but I think what happened is when that happened is some people who are on the fence with tax law selling perhaps said, okay, if we're not going to get a decision until like January, February, as has happened 4 times since 1996, we're just going to sell our position now because, the market's extremely weak and maybe buy back in the new year. So I suspect that was part of what happened early week. The market got hit again and actually broke the year-to-date lows briefly, and now it's sort of rebounded as news of joint-backed bill with AOC and David Joyce would make expungements actually happen with the HOPE Act. So there's the hope that it can be combined with safe banking and give Chuck Schumer some of what he wants in his more comprehensive bill that he's trying to draft legislation that he's going to probably introduce next year.
So
funny enough, I actually participated in the scenario that you just painted with tax law selling. My year end was November 31st. I called my broker on November 31st, sold everything, the entire portfolio in U.S. cannabis.
Wow.
I'm going to rebound. I'm going to buy back. I mean, my losses were crazy. I was down like 40% on some positions. I had to get it out of the way. First week of January, I'm putting all the capital to work right away. And getting back in.
Where are we making?
Now, let me ask you this. Sorry, Shad. Let me ask you this as a follow-up because I think viewers would be interested. Can you use some of? I'm assuming this was in your personal account with the sales of.
No, this isn't. No. This is in my company. This is in my company account. My fund account that I manage.
Okay, fair enough. But okay, so say you had like crypto stocks in your fund account or coins or tokens or whatever. Could you offset cannabis versus some of your crypto losses? Or would they all be considered the same?
They're all pooled into the same. They're all pooled into the same. I just had to offset it. I had a couple of private placements I got out of in the past couple of months where my cost basis was 2 cents, and I mean the stock I got out of in like the 30-cent range. But it was just a function of just get out, book the loss, and I'm coming right back in. I've got leaps on MSOS and my other account, so I've still got exposure.
You are coming right back in then come New Year.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've said on the podcast several times, I'm long cannabis. I'm more longer cannabis potentially than crypto. I mean, it was a function of, it was just an economic decision. It was book the losses, pray that the sector doesn't rip in the next month. But I'm as soon as I can, I'm participating right away. And I'll probably double down. Too. That's what I was. Yeah.
Because if it gets delayed,
isn't going anywhere.
If it gets
from a
delayed,
growth perspective,
January anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I could miss a little bit of alpha, but at the end of the day, I needed the losses. And I mean, like I was saying when we were in pre-production, I mean, I bought Verano the day after earnings, and I'm down 28% on it as of this morning.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Their margins were absurd. They blew out EBITDA, and granted they had an unlock, which I knew was coming, but still 28% in 4 weeks. In a growth sector is crazy, especially when the fundamental story is still intact.
27%.
Yeah.
We had Brady Cobb on last week. That was a great interview, by the way, Ben. Stuff that we learned. You had any conversations with anyone else this week and what they might be hearing about what we could expect with the NDAA going into next year?
Yeah, I actually have. I spoke with Terracin President and CIO, Chief Investment Officer Jason Wild yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we had a conversation. And I'll just preface this by saying none of this should, no one should be buying positions based on this. Necessarily do your own due diligence, but he was, I got the feeling that he was optimistic based on his industry contacts, people he knows, piecing things together that SAFE does have a good chance of passing, right? That was my impression. And I've been hearing this not just from Jason, but, Brady Cobb, other industry participants. And I think it came to the forefront yesterday with the HOPE Act legislation that AOC and David Joyce, bipartisan, I might add, is getting introduced because then that gives some of Chuck Schumer what he wants, and it kind of takes away an excuse not to go ahead with this and to go ahead with his more comprehensive CAOA Act, right? I mean, so safe banking makes more sense. And then that's the way the market has interpreted it, and we saw a bounce yesterday that's continued into today because of it.
Yeah. Wanted to bring up Germany. I know there's been, when we were at MJ Biz last month, we met with a few people that were talking about how this is not getting enough attention, but things are moving along quickly. They're set to legalize cannabis. What can we expect when this does happen? And what are the important notes that investors should look for when obviously the bill is signed, Anthony, and the opportunity that it presents?
I mean, I think Europe is probably the most underserved market in the world from a cannabis investment perspective. I mean, I like to consider myself an expert on the space as well as Ben. I mean, I could probably name you only 2 enterprise level players in the EU. And I mean, it's got double the population of the United States. EMAC, which was purchased by Curaleaf. And then I think it's Synthios or Synthetech. It's Christian Angermeyer's operation out of Germany. I think Germany is going to set the framework for the EU, and then you're going to see countries such as Italy, Portugal, Spain, the UK follow. I think the UK is going to be very slow. They're still not there where we are in terms of social acceptance of cannabis. But it's going to happen. I mean, it's rolling out, and I mean, I think it's going to be convoluted and not as streamlined as you saw in Canada and the U.S. But I mean, it's coming. I mean, you could argue that Europe's going to be the main growth driver for cannabis globally if North America doesn't get its shit together. But I mean, if Mexico goes legal, the U.S. goes legal, and Canada goes legal, then it's going to be a formidable competitor on the global stage.
When you say it's coming, do you care to elaborate on that?
You mean in terms of legalization? Yeah, I mean they're from a governmental perspective. I mean they're pushing legislation right now to outright legalize in Germany. German health insurance covers it from a medical perspective, and I mean if you get that patient base going, and then you also get rec following, the German companies and the revenue that's going to be produced out of there is huge. And I mean Aurora, Kronos, a couple of the major Canadian LPs still have leverage to the EU as well as Tilray. Through the distribution company that they acquired via the Afria deal. So I mean, there are some Canadian players that have leveraged that market as well.
Ben, your story from last week regarding the NDAA, I thought was very interesting. Actually picked up traction on wallstreetbets that was home to over 11 million investors. What was your takeaway based on that response? Because it got a ton of attention. And for those that didn't get a chance to read the story, maybe elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, it did get a lot of attention. It was, probably one of our highest viewed articles in our short history. It actually made number one on weedstocks as well, Reddit weedstocks, and also Reddit economy, which has 770,000 people. So obviously there's a lot of interest, and it just shows that there's a lot of people following the MSOs market right now. You can see that in the volumes in the chart, which have picked up substantially. Highest level since it broke out essentially last September, October. So, my biggest takeaways are, a lot of interest in the sector. People are looking at this. People are trying to gauge which way safe banking is going to go. And I think people, we got the narrative 100% right that this is the biggest regulatory thing that's ever happened in the sector. Because when you think about it, right, like companies, wouldn't be subject to money laundering laws, right? Or asset forfeiture. So this will get the depositing banks, into it, right? They'll get them off the shelf and get them to lend money to these companies, right? And basket sizes of credit cards come in, right? You could see some of these companies increase basket sizes 5 to 10% or more overnight. I think that's pretty conservative estimate. So this, and the uplisting issue too. It's not clear if they can go to big exchanges in the U.S. or just the TSX. But either way, you're talking about a major exchange, and almost every fund that I know of can invest in actual TSX companies, whether it's U.S. or not, right? So you're talking about a huge catalyzing event, and not to mention that it gets them about halfway to legalization. Because once people see, as Brady said, no stone zombies falling out of trees, right? Once they realize that nothing's really changed and that, everything is fine, then people will be more comfortable with more encompassing legislation that goes the distance.
Do you think the industry
couldn't be better said.
Industry popularity, interest level, the markets obviously haven't performed the way we want, but do you guys think that it's at an all-time high, knowing that, people are waiting obviously for legislation, but for the overall health of the industry, do you think as we translate and pivot into 2022, the interest level is at an all-time high?
Yeah. I think it is. And I don't think there's ever been a better place to get in. Right now, from a public equity perspective, the multiples are depressed, the stocks have been beaten to shit, but the fundamental stories are intact. Granted, you can make an argument, sure, quarter over quarter growth might have slowed, but year over year growth is booming. These companies are still making money hand over fist in a heavily regulated environment that they shouldn't be making money in. This Safe Banking Act is. They're gonna succeed with or without it, but it's going to make them so much more efficient and profitable and free that it is. I don't think there's ever been a better time to get in, especially where the sector's at right now.
Yeah, I agree with that, Anthony. What he just said. I would only preface this by saying, if for some reason it fails, before,
we're going down.
That, obviously, on a short-term basis, there could be a little bit more downside as people, there's uncertainty of when the next regulatory catalyst comes. And I'm sure Anthony knows.
And if there's an event that Safe fails and you see another 20% leg down in this sector, I will start taking my money out of crypto and putting it back into cannabis.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If that happens, there is never going to be a better buying opportunity in this sector if we take another 20 to 25% down leg.
I agree.
That will be. I would do whatever I could and pour as much money as I can, personally and professionally, into the cannabis sector if that does happen.
Would you take a HELOC out, Anthony? Your home equity loan? I'm sure some people might even do that in that case, because I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I've always been a proponent of you should not be able to buy things like crypto, cannabis, etc. via a credit card or via any kind of line of credit. You need to be buying it in hard dollars just from a risk perspective. But if that did happen and this sector gets hit even harder, I would literally do everything in my power to be levered to it 110%, because it's not going to kill the sector. We've gotten here without the Safe Banking Act. We've gotten here with 280E just being a weight on these companies. We're going to go farther into the future with or without it. And I'd love to do it with it. But if I can get more can get more stocks on sale from a short term pain of not having it, yeah, I'm going to buy all day. I will double down, triple down, do whatever I can to get more exposure to the sector if that happens.
And it's worth noting, too, that even if SAFE failed for some reason, because Chuck Schumer is on an agenda and, he's blocks it even in the conference process somehow, that momentum that we've seen with Nancy Mace, with AOC David Joyce, with the Senate Arms Committee recommending, that's not going away. That's still going to be there, and it's still going to add further pressure for somebody to act maybe by next spring or summer, right? So it's like
and I think that's a great point, because to put it clearly, the Safe Banking Act will kill the momentum in the capital markets in the short term, but it's not going to kill any of the momentum fundamentally in the cannabis sector. We're going higher. These companies are going to grow like I said, with or without it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're on pins and needles here, unfortunately, at the wits of legislators.
Bold statement, though, to say the least, on the overall long-term health of the industry. It's clearly that, as you guys are saying, this interest level is still at an all-time high, and anxious to see how this unfolds going into 2022.
Yeah, and one thing that to preface that, yes, the conviction is still there, but I think we do need the Safe Banking Act in the regard of letting institutional capital come in, because I don't think that there's enough retail capital and retail interest, if we do take another leg down, to come into the sector and infuse it and bring it back to the upside.
Good point.
We'll need institutional capital to make that move to the upside.
Yeah. Miami, Florida seems to be the center of the world right now. Art Basel. You going out tonight?
Yeah. I am. I'm actually heading down to the beach in about an hour, going to the main Art Basel convention.
Okay, so
then I've got
walk me through.
A lot of friends from up north.
I was in Miami last month. Love the city. Wish I was there. But you said NFT. It's like everywhere. And by the way, great podcast that you and Nicole Hodges had earlier this week. For those, we launched a new podcast called Crypto Define, which basically educates people on the crypto DeFi space and NFTs, and obviously you, Nicole, wealth of knowledge, but it really simplifies things from an entry-level standpoint. But long story short, wanted to ask, so there's chatter everywhere, and it's all about how the NFT space is just basically flipping the entire world around upside down in various industries. So one of the things I noticed is that Adidas, they joined the Bored Apes Yacht Club. So what does that mean? What can we expect? And why do they get involved? Which seems like
I think it's pop culture. It's pop culture.
Yeah.
It's staying relevant.
Digital
it's resonating to an
culture.
audience. Yeah. It is. And NFTs, and especially the Bored Apes, the Gutter Cats, they are pop culture. You saw Budweiser got into the metaverse and are issuing beer NFTs. They bought beer.eth, and now it is the headline of their Twitter account. Companies have to come into Web3. They need to do it authentically, and they need to do it in a tasteful manner, because if you don't, the current community in NFTs and in crypto, they're going to shellac you. They're not going to clap for you just because you buy a Bored Ape and put it as your profile picture.
What's a tasteful manner then?
Adidas.
What does a tasteful manner mean?
Adidas towed it. Yeah, Adidas towed into it with doing a proposed collaboration with a certain influencer in the space, which brought together Pixel Vault, which is another blue chip NFT collection, Adidas, and the Bored Apes Yacht Club, in conjunction with influencers, in conjunction with grassroots efforts in the NFT sector. Not just buying a Bored Ape and being like, hey guys, we're here. They're doing it right. Budweiser buying beer.eth is probably one of the smartest things they could do.
Nike.
Nike's going to come in. I don't know how they're going to come in. They've already said that they're going to produce shoes in the metaverse. So, I would expect to see a Nike store in the Sandbox, Decentraland, in the different metaverse platforms. It wouldn't surprise me if there's going to be a Nike store somewhere in there in the future.
I can't even fathom the idea of the opportunity that presents.
Yeah, well, think of it like that. Think of it like this. So traditionally, I've always said, I play computer games. I've always played computer games. In an MMORPG or a role-playing game, you have your character, that's your avatar, and then throughout the game, you're progressing, getting gear, getting skins, and generating an aesthetic of your character.
Yeah.
With Web3 and with the metaverse, that character now is you, And unlike those games where the publisher owned all of the items, I now own all of the items. So if I want to wear a Gucci t-shirt and Nikes in the metaverse, I can, and it's not part of the publisher and part of the game. It's mine. I can equip that to my avatar, and I can use that in the metaverse. And I mean, people are using it to flex on each other in the metaverse, which is what people are doing with CryptoPunks and Bored Apes. It's like wearing a Patek. It's like wearing a Patek or a Rolex in real life. I mean, if people see a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape on their Twitter profile, they're like, okay, that person's either A, wealthy, or B, smart, because they got in early. And it's just another way of I guess flexing on people, and unfortunately that's ingrained in culture right now. It's really just a Trojan horse. Yeah. No, not at all. But I mean, it's a Trojan horse for the adoption of NFTs and crypto, because I mean, when you really look at an NFT at its core, it's a smart contract. Yeah. All that image is the outward facing identity of it as representative of the hash that it represents on the blockchain. So, I mean, at its core, it's a smart contract, and those smart contracts are quickly going to be everywhere. I mean, I've seen them in everything from insurance products to titles of houses. Companies have started to emerge that are going to be leveraging NFTs to do everything.
It's mind-blowing how quickly this is moving. So if I've got anxiety and I'm like, I need to get into, like, obviously the space when it comes to NFTs, what would you recommend? And again, this is not advice, but if it was you.
Yeah, I mean, especially in regards to this, I mean, I really don't like telling people what to buy, especially due to the barrier to entry. I mean, I think it's a little bit arrogant, or I guess tone deaf, to expect someone to just be able to go buy a $30,000 JPEG that they're going to put as their Twitter profile and then tell them, yeah, you're collecting it as art. I think it's a little presumptuous. But I mean, there's a lot of games that are coming out in the space where users can generate passive yield. And I mean, those NFTs are really selling for anywhere between 0.3 and 0.5 ETH. And they can also, some of them are also cool art. There's ways to participate that's not really at the top of the cone. I would say look at things such as Gutter Cats, look at things such as Swampverse, Cool Cats. There's a couple ape things out there, but I mean, I would say toe in with caution. Start very small, and then figure out your risk appetite and figure out your educational curve for the sector, and then just start to go up from there. Yeah. I mean, I got lucky. The first NFT I bought was an ape. Yeah. But I also happened to have the capital and decided to just jump in.
Smart.
And take the dive, and it was a good decision. It also could have blown up in my face and went to zero. I bought plenty of NFTs that I'm down on. The ones that I've bought that have appreciated, though, have just carried my gains.
Yeah.
Now, Anthony, on Twitter, do you ever post recommendations? I know you'd be cautious with that, but do you post your picks of what NFTs you would like?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, and here's the beauty about NFTs and crypto is transparency. Unlike my stock account on TD Ameritrade, you'll never know what I'm actually buying and selling. If I go on Twitter and I'm like, yeah, I just bought this, you can go look at my wallet on OpenSea. You can see what I bought it for. You can see what I've sold it for, or you can see what I'm listing it for. And it's all transparent. I mean, I've posted, for instance, I bought a doodle 3 weeks ago, which that's actually a good entry-level project. It's a Canadian artist called Burnt Toast, and he came out with a collection called Doodles. I thought they were about to rip. I told a couple of my friends. They bought them. I bought mine for 3.8 Ethereum. I cut bait and sold it last week for 2.3 and just booked the loss. That's public record. You can go on my OpenSea account, look at my wallet, and it's there. I can talk about losses just as much as I like to talk about wins.
Yeah.
And that's inherent in crypto and in NFTs. You can see everything. It's public record.
Okay, so you bring up a good point. Just for our viewers' knowledge, my own knowledge as well. You can go on OpenSea. Can you do this with anybody? Go on OpenSea and see what they've done. So there's a platform out there that allows you to see what anybody has done if you type in their information and see what they've done in the NFT world.
Within reason. Okay, so you can take it a step further. So as we've said, Ethereum is essentially powering a lot of the NFT infrastructure. So if you actually go to Etherscan, which is a database of all of the transactions that happen on the Ethereum blockchain, if you were to go type in my wallet address, which is public knowledge, you could literally go on OpenSea and copy and paste my Ethereum address into Etherscan. You can see everything that I've ever done. You can see any kind of coins that I've traded. You can see any kind of NFTs that I've purchased, and you could basically audit all of them in real time. And
could you do this with like people like Gary Vaynerchuk and like basically anybody who's you have their wallet address?
Anyone. There is no way to hide what you have done on the Ethereum blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
It is there. It is public record, and it's immutable. Once it's there, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
wow,
yes,
this
you could do it with anybody.
Seems like a better way of doing things than like the stock market,
it's
where,
great.
like you said, right? You have this layer of disclosure that makes it legitimate, right?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, if I post a, for instance, there's a lot of people out there that are scamming, like posting like, oh, I'm giving away this Bored Ape, or I'm giving away this mutant ape, follow me, blah, blah, blah. People just go look up their Ethereum address and they're like, dude, you don't even own that. Like, you're full of shit. I mean, there's no, if you wanted to create some grandiose crypto personality, or like say that you're this amazing trader, you have all these assets, and someone just says, okay, well, give me your wallet address, there's no way around it. It's public record.
Yeah.
You could see every NFT that I own right now on Etherscan.
God, I'd love that right now.
What I paid, yeah, you could see what I paid for it, and you could see the total value.
Yeah. Let's talk crypto. Markets trading sideways. You love this. Ben, you care to...
Yeah, it's great.
Easy pickings?
I mean, I wouldn't say easy pickings. I mean, don't get me wrong. I get a little bit afraid sometimes when Ethereum starts to crack the 4,000 level. But I mean, over the past 6 weeks, it's basically traded in a range. It's gone from 4,000 back to 46, 4,000 back to 47, 4,000 back to 46. So, I mean, it's been trading in that range. It looks like it's finding some support at 4,000. I don't know if it's going to...
So I'm looking
for it to break out.
You're buying at 4, selling at 47, and then just history repeats itself. That's great. That's great.
I've done that 4 times. I've done that 4 times in separate instances in the past 6 weeks.
Is this a new base, you think, for Ethereum?
It'd be fucking amazing if it is. I mean, if 4,000 is the new base, if 4,000 is the new base for Ethereum, then I mean, once we start to really get momentum, and I mean, I think the market cap right now is about 560 billion. So I mean, if we're starting to see more adoption, you start to see ETH 2.0 take shape. I mean, I'd love to see it crack 7, 8K, start to really rise. But I mean, it's got to break through that 4,700 point sooner or later. If not, then I mean, it trades sideways, I'm fine. I mean, as long as we're not seeing like a 30% dip down, 10% higher, then a 40% dip down, which crypto's performed such as in the past couple of years.
I'd like to get both your opinions on this. When I look at the overall, like let's face it, the last 3 months here in Q4, it is insane what the crypto, DeFi, and NFT space has become. There's no slowing this down. So what do you think right now Wall Street is getting wrong about all these industries? And what do you think eventually is going to happen when it comes to regulation? How quickly will that materialize? Because at this pace, like we look at the DeFi space, it's gone from a zero to a $260 billion industry in 90 days. 90 days. I'd like to get both your opinions on that.
I mean, the problem with Wall Street is everyone talks their own book. Nobody wants to talk up anything that they're not levered to. And I mean, from a licensing perspective, I was talking to an MD the other night at an NFT event. He's a MD of a prominent investment bank that I've actually done deals with before, and he can't touch crypto due to his licensing. They can't touch it, whether it's NFT, whether it's crypto. From a regulatory perspective, they can't touch it. And I mean, I don't think they care to learn it. I mean, they're making money hand over fist. All my friends that are in private equity and that are on the street, they're making so much fucking money that they don't even care about being levered to crypto. But at the end of the day, I mean, you either need to learn this stuff and be levered to it in some way and understand how it's going to disrupt those sectors that you're participating in now, or you're going to get left behind. But I mean, it's a function of just not that they can't, just like cannabis.
Yeah.
And right now they don't have the urgency to learn about it.
Yeah.
You know, I think an argument could be made that Wall Street is getting more attuned to this. I mean, for example, there's a very underrated comment that happened recently at something called the DACOM Summit 2021, where the chairman of the SEC, right, one of the most, the most powerful securities commission in the world, basically said that Bitcoin is a competitor to the U.S. banking system, right? So
it is.
That's a huge statement, right? That's a tacit acknowledgement of competitiveness, of that it's right in line with the U.S. dollar, that it's not some sort of fringe thing. So it's going mainstream. And, we have a company called Liquid Meta that we're covering. It's going to IPO probably in the next month or so. And I was looking at some of the documentation, and there's been a lot of investment bank movements at least in the DeFi space, right? Over the last year, right? Goldman's got in, H.C. Wainwright's got in, a few of the investment banks are getting in, and they're setting the table to try, of getting higher yields with, yield farming with stable coins and stuff like that. So it is definitely growing. I'm sure Anthony can speak to this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a DeFi protocol right now. I'm making $1,000 a day in profit, passively, just for staking my coins.
Yield farming?
It's called Olympus. It's called Olympus Dao. I'm staking my coins. It's a rebasing coin. If you really look at it at its core, I mean, it kind of looks like a Ponzi scheme on the base layer. But I mean, the way that the mechanics, it's a sound reserve currency that's generating yield if you choose to stake it. I mean, it's super risky, but I mean, right now, I mean, it's 7,000% APY that it's yielding. I mean, DeFi is really giving people like I've said, I think I might have said this in the first episode of the podcast. I mean, with DeFi, if you want and you have the risk profile and you're willing to participate, there are gains to be made. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you don't want to participate and you don't want to take that risk, you can put your money elsewhere. Yeah. If you're a steward of your own capital, you can choose to put it wherever you want. But there are more people now that are participating in DeFi and NFTs and in crypto because the alpha's there. And at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of people don't like the stock market anymore. I mean, it's a I don't want to call it a zero-sum game, but I mean, it's manipulated by the Federal Reserve and it's manipulated by Wall Street. And I mean, there's a lot of outside driving forces that affect the stock market that are completely out of our control. And as we know, when the stock market tanks, the only people that get bailed out are the big boys. The little guys on the street, on Main Street and retail, do not get bailed out. It's hold and pray to God that in a decade your money comes back. The big boys go to the discount window at the Fed with their hands out and they get bailouts. And I mean, people are sick of that, and people are sick of the traditional financial system. And I mean, that's why I invested in crypto. Yeah, that's why I started learning about crypto.
Yeah. Do you think crypto will ever change, Anthony? Like in terms of, do you think it will ever get so big, and when the investment banks come in, then it'll start being manipulated too, or stuff? I guess that's the natural progression of things, right, over time. But it's not happening now.
No, I mean, it's not happening now. I mean, I think that can happen to a degree. I mean, you're starting to see it in DeFi, where people are creating these coins and they're creating synthetic derivatives of the coins, and then a derivative of the derivative of the coins. But at the end of the day, the way that crypto right now is differing from the general financial system in terms of fiat is, if we all had Bitcoin wallets right now and we had whatever amount of Bitcoin, we own that Bitcoin at that point in time. That Bitcoin is in our wallet. Nobody else can be leveraging it or using it in any other use case. All of our bank accounts, from a traditional perspective, those dollars are not there. Those dollars are in someone's mortgage. They're on someone's car payment. They're being bundled up and synthetically derived in other products. Like, we have no control of that. At least in crypto, like, my wallet has everything that I own in it. Right. From a coin perspective. Yeah. It's physically there. Yeah. And it cannot be manipulated in those terms.
Sorry, one follow-up question. How are the governments going to allow, and again, we've talked about this on previous shows, but that's the one thing that makes me skeptical, is that, government's always trying to reach in, always trying to grab, gain control, grab money out of your pockets. How is this going to be allowed to stand long term? If you have like a super encrypted wallet, all your assets are your own, it's all transparent. This goes against everything that, things like the stock market, deposit institutions do. So like, how is this going to stand with government over time? Like,
I mean, the way that the governments are going to get their hand in it, I mean, it's already happening. Like, for instance, Coinbase, if you have a Coinbase account, they have a thorough KYC process Kraken has a thorough KYC process, and I mean, they are going to hand over tax documents to the government. They do know what you're participating in. Granted, if I have a Coinbase account and then I have a VPN and they have a KuCoin account, I can mask stuff and create elaborate which people do now with LLCs and stuff in the traditional sense. So, I mean, I think the government's going to regulate it to a degree where they get their cut. They're not going to get their totalitarian cut, which they're not doing now when you look at corporations and individuals gaming the general tax system. But they're going to figure out a way to get their cut. I mean, I pay all of my taxes on crypto to the dollar. I don't fuck around when it comes to that because I don't ever want to get audited and I don't want them knocking on my door. And I know for a fact that Coinbase, OpenSea, all of the big U.S. exchanges do report to the government, and they are going to allow the SEC and allow the organizations in from an audit perspective. So if and when that happens, I don't want any questions. I pay my taxes. I participate from that point of view, and I mean they're going to get their shill. But I mean, from an overall regulatory perspective, I don't even know how they're going to be able to outside of that.
Gents, this has been great. A lot of information, but this has been great. I hope people get a good understanding of what we think, obviously, is going to happen trending-wise over the next 30 to 60 days in the cannabis space. And then, like you said, this NFT space just continues to blow up. Potential new bases being set for Ethereum. And then, it might be a good time, obviously, just with the way this is, performing back and forth between 4,000 and 4,700. But this has been great. Chat with you guys next week.
Yep. Just as a caveat, just remember that Ethereum is not the end-all be-all to crypto. I mean, I always keep this one notion in the back of my mind. Ethereum was first to market. AOL was first to market in Web 2.
Yeah.
So that can easily happen.
MySpace was before Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't always pay to be first to market. So, I mean, I just keep that general rule of thumb.
Well said.
When looking at Ethereum. I never would go all in on it.
Well said.
Per se.
All right. We're getting on the plane. We'll see you in Miami tonight.
Sounds good. I'll see you boys soon.
All right. See ya.